hear you fine. I'm going to go without a headset.
That's fine.
Because, well, what it is. I have I have hearing aids in, and the problem is that if I don't go with a headset, then if I go with a headset rather, and it's not strong, it'll just be frustrating to me.
Yeah. Does it interfere? What?
When is your date with us?
Wednesday.
This Wednesday?
Not tomorrow, next week. I think the 16th. Yeah, 16th.
Right. Okay, good. So we have a little bit of time.
How are ticket sales? I'm assuming like over 200 something.
Are we over 200 sold already?
I would say, we were, I think, around there a month ago.
And you're a point deal, right?
Percentage deal. What do you mean point?
Well, percentage points. Learn the business. Learn the business.
I'm a teacher. We don't talk like that,
Yeah, well, I've been in teacher negotiations. You do talk like that. Anyway, so the thing is, you have to be wary when a guy like myself on the production end says, "Well, it's a point deal." My next sentence is, "Well, a lot of comps, Not two.
No, I'm just two. My mom and my wife.
No, you're missing all of this. What I'm saying is, that the club would tell you they're all comps.
To make it, I gotcha. All right, things don't translate on Zoom. It's like a text message,
No, it's going really well, and you sold very well in Connecticut as well. Did you have fun up there?
Yeah, your club, I love your clubs because the whole energy of them is fun, and I think it's just a part of like when they're walking in, they're having a good time, so it just rolls in. But it was fun, it was a good time. Yeah, I think I sold like 120 in Connecticut on a Wednesday night, something like that.
And in Connecticut, you were very early in the summer. And what I tell everybody is June and July are significantly harder than August, because by August, people have gotten their beach yayas are under control.
Now they're just looking to like relax and do things in their home.
Yeah. And and you murdered it when you're here with Joe D. And so we're really excited to have you back in. And we'll do it again.
This, Jersey's my New York, Jersey, this is my market. I sell well all over here. I just sold out in Long Island 2 more times. So like this market is great for me.
It's awesome. And now, listen, there's so many things to talk about, right? And I hate when podcasts between comics, it's just the same boring stuff that people cover over and over. So some of my questions are different. How would you say you most look up to me?
I got an answer. You went from mediocre comedian to great club owner.
Oh, no play, Gaspare. So, listen, there's been for whatever reason, now there's been more than a few teacher shows coming up. And crazy. I think Joe D probably had a lot to do with that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think he's kind of on the cutting edge. And you've been with Joe for how long?
So about over a year. We've been together we do the podcast together, we do shows together. We're pretty intertwined for the last year.
It's great. And Joe, we wanted Joe here at the club. He came here. Tremendous show. The two of you just murdered it.
Thank you.
What do you think the reason is that all of a sudden we see an explosion of teacher comics? Dennis Wolfberg did it 100 years ago. A guy named Jerry Red Wilson that died early did it 100 years ago. There have been a few, Ted Alexandro. But now there's really a lot of it coming up. And it's exciting. It's fun. What do you think the sudden explosion is all about?
So I think it's a combination. I think number one, it's like for so long, teachers have been like in this like repressed state of like, teachers can only do this, walk this way, talk this way, don't curse, don't wear this, don't do this. And it's like the new age teacher is like, nah, I'm going to wear shorts to work. I'm going to have tattoos. I'm going to kind of do what, like you can have tattoos and still be a good teacher. Whereas in like that old school method was like, that's not what teachers do. That, teachers don't wear bikinis at the beach. Like everything was always like taboo. And I think now that it's more like out in the open that people are like, hey, I'm a teacher. I could do my job and still have fun with it. And also the teacher market's great because every year there's new teachers. So it's like you're never going to run out of people to entertain. So,
But what about someone like me, who, when I see a tattooed teacher, immediately thinks, I got to get my kid away from this freak.
yeah, and I don't blame you. I feel the same way.
So, I think there's something to what you're saying, right? In other words, teachers, for want of a better word, maybe are off the leash a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
And I think like they're a little more unhinged today, and they're doing what they want to do. And like, I feel like people like myself, Joe D, like we're kind of giving a voice to the people who you want to, as a teacher, you want to say like, F you to the administration, but you can't. But by listening to us, it's kind of like, oh, all right. Like, I'm not the only one who feels this way. So like these people get me. So it's like very easily relatable to so many people.
so I would guess that you're already a tenured teacher, right?
Yeah, I've been teaching 13 years.
So you plan to keep on teaching?
We'll see what happens.
So, well, that's the thing, right? So where do you teach? What district?
I teach in New York City.
So that's a good paying job, I'm guessing.
Yeah, New York City, we're definitely higher end of the pay scale, but it's all cost of living relative. A pretzel in the mall is $9 for me. So like when people are like, well, teachers make a lot in New York. Well, yeah, we also pay a lot to just breathe the air in New York.
Right,
So,
everybody does. And
yeah.
that, it's certainly not unique to just teachers, but everyone has that problem. So, but there's a number, right? There's a number where you're making enough money to go, I'm not going to do this anymore. Or do you love teaching?
So one of the things that I like about what I'm doing is that so many people are like, oh, like we like that you're still in the classroom because it's very relatable. Like you're still one of us. And I do worry that like if I stepped away from teaching, do I lose that like one of us relatability? But then on the other hand, like there also comes a point where I'm turning down jobs because I'm like, no, I gotta teach about, the discovery of America tomorrow morning. So I have to like turn down a gig because I have to fly somewhere. And it's like, oh, that one gig would pay me more money than I'd make in the month of teaching. Like, so it comes to a point where you got to start like really evaluating financially what's worth what to you.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is, and I'll paraphrase it, you're a little bit of a whore. And
Wherever the money is where I'll go.
No, that's really the thing, right? In other words, there comes a time, I'm sure you went into teaching because you love teaching. You didn't go into teaching. No?
I like the summers,
So you went into teaching for money?
No one goes into teaching for money. I went into teaching because I had a teacher when I was young who helped me a lot because my mom had a brain aneurysm. I had a lot of stuff happen in my life as a kid. Nothing like, nothing significant to anybody, whatever, just family medical stuff that happened. And I had a teacher who was like, hey, don't worry about school. Like, just take care of yourself, worry about being a good person. And that's more important. And I just took that with me. And I was like, I want to be that for people. Now, my school doesn't love that I start every year off by saying, hey, guys, I don't care how you do in my class. Don't worry about the grades. Just worry about being a good person. But that is more important. You get further in life by being a good person than you do by knowing how many, square miles Genghis Khan marched. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like being a good person is the most important thing in this world. So,
and you're a history teacher, I'm taking it.
Yes.
All right. So, clearly Genghis Khan, not one of the best people in the world. So knowing how far he marched wouldn't necessarily make you a good person. So do you think that when you tell kids that they're better learners anyway?
Oh yeah, because you establish this connection that like, hey, this guy cares about me. It's not just like, I'm here to tell you about school. Like I'm invested in their lives. I'm with them more than I'm with my own kids. I only see my own kids 3 hours a day at the end of the day when they get home from school and they're up and then they go to sleep. You know what I mean? But these kids, I'm with them for 8 hours. So I think it's important.
Yeah. So your kids' teachers know you're a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, and how old are your kids?
6 and 3.
So here's a fair question. And I think I know the answer. I better know the answer. You would love to have you as a teacher for your own kids, not?
Of course.
Right.
Not
right.
Me personally, I don't want to teach my kids.
Yeah,
but
you know what I mean.
I would like if someone said to my kids, hey, it's more important to be good than to memorize the periodic table. I mean, Look, there's certain things you need to know how to read and write, of course. But like as far as other stuff, there's more important things in the world. Meanwhile, my daughter, I have my bathrooms getting redone right now. So we have contractors here. The guy's name is Omar. My daughter's teacher just texted me and said, hey, your daughter's walking around saying, my daddy's friend Omar broke our whole bathroom. My daughter's 3. She's walking around the daycare. My daddy's friend Omar broke our whole bathroom. We're not going to have a bathroom ever again. So they were like, is everything okay at home? I'm like, yes, we're getting work done. He didn't break our bathroom. Funny. But I just told him, he was cracking up.
That's really funny. And be careful with Omar. So be very careful. So over the summers, when you get to really go out and make your run.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been touring this summer. It's been great. So.
And how many weekends are you working? Joe D is not teaching anymore, right?
No, he doesn't teach anymore. So he does get he does do a lot more Thursday, Friday, Saturdays during the year. I don't really have that luxury. I'm just kind of like, hey, if you want me on a Saturday, I'm great. If not, if it's a Friday, kind of close to New York City, I could get there. But that's where I'm running into my issues for sure.
Right. Because, there'll be a point, though. I've seen your actor. Very, very funny.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Lovable on stage. You'll get to that point as well. And I think that really you have to get to the point where Joe D was, where you go, listen, as much as I love impacting on children, I can impact on the kids at home, too, by being able to take good vacations and have a renovated bathroom.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what? Like one time, and this isn't to sound like, oh, we're martyrs, but like one time someone said to me, she's like, you do more as a comedian than you do as a teacher. She's like, because you reinvigorate all these teachers to then be better teachers. So she's like, when you teach 100 kids. She's like, but when you do fun stuff and everybody enjoys it, they go to work in a better mood, people are happy, then that impacts thousands of kids. And I was like, oh shit, I never really thought of it like that. But I still don't think of it fully like that. But it is a cool way to look at it when I want to feel better about quitting teaching.
Yeah. And so, this is a question that impacted on my life. And first of all, I had great teachers. And I know their names. I keep in touch with a couple of them. So teaching, it's critical. And my kids have great teachers. My children have had great teachers. But what I was getting at is when I was young and started doing stand-up, I had young children. I didn't want to go away on the weekends, every weekend, to put food on the table, because then I'm missing the soccer game, the baseball game. I'm missing, and to your point earlier, you see your kids 3 hours a day right now. So, and it's an hour in the morning getting ready. It's home after school, and then everyone's got to get to bed because the next day happens. So the weekends are premium dad time, which is one of the reasons I opened a club all those years ago. It's one of the reasons, and I needed to be able to be around my children. And now I find myself really wanting to do what you're doing and Joe D's doing and make that run, right? And be able to fill a theater. But I do find myself every now and then going, well, if I get a big audience, they're going to have to come to where I am, because I have a 10-year-old and I don't want to miss her stuff. And, the entertainment business is a leech for life, meaning if you can get to the top of the pay scale, you can work less because you can still afford your life. But if you work too little, well, they forget about you. So it's a really difficult balance. Have you thought all that through? And
it sucks.
It's tough because if you walk away from teaching, you're walking away from certain aspects, health insurance and summers off, into a whole different world where the financial remuneration is great, but the sacrifices, how do you think you'll square that?
So this is a good question. So one thing, it's twofold. So one part of it is teaching I enjoy because it does keep me grounded. It keeps me home. It keeps me here. It keeps me from missing. Like you said, I'm a big family person. So like I take my daughter to ballet Saturday mornings. My son's got baseball. I coach on his team. Like I don't want to give all that up. You know what I mean? Like I turned down a job a few weeks ago. It was because it was my son's, a few months ago, my son had a Father's Day breakfast and it was 30 minutes, donuts with dad. And I was like, the pay was so good for the job, but I said, I can't have him looking around and like, oh, my dad's the only dad not here. And like, yeah, I could make it up for it to him and take him on a vacation with the money, but money's not the end of the world to me. Money's cool, but money's not everything. And so that's one aspect of why I stay in the classroom. Another one is, like Joe D and I talk about this all the time. Like, it's lonely at the top. That's a real saying. Like when you're on the road, like my wife always says, oh, you must have so much fun on the road. I'm like, no, I would have fun if I was single on the road, but I'm not single. And I miss my kids and I miss the comforts of like living in a hotel room is not fun. Like I was in LA, San Diego, and then Arizona. So for a week, I was just in a hotel room, in an airport, hotel room, airport, and it sucks. Like you're living out of a suitcase. That's not like as cracked up as it is. And when people say like, oh, you can travel and you could see, when you're by yourself, that's not really like, do you want to go see the Grand Canyon by yourself? Like just standing there? Wow. It's sad.
I think you're right. No, you soften that light. I look very washed out. Yeah. So Gaspare looks fantastic, and I look like I don't know, some type of vampire. So it's a funny thing you say that because that's really as accurate as it can get. When you're in a hotel room and you can go see the Hoover Dam, even if it's you and a buddy, right? So it's you and a friend, you're going to go see the Hoover Dam. Okay, great, you see the Hoover Dam. But there's something to be said. It's irreplaceable to see it with your wife or your significant other or your children. And so, I have done enough road work to know, but that how tough it is. Now, the flip of that is, if you can go do road work and come home with a pile of cash and only do 2 weekends a month, well, then you can start to marry it, right?
That's kind of like what the end goal would be. Like if I could do 2 good run weekends a month, still making way more than I'm making teaching, and then I'm home for, that's 6 days. So I'm home for 24 days out of the month, and I could be more present when I'm home but the issue is, once again, as I've talked to other comedians and other people, is they say you say that now, but then all of a sudden someone's dangling the carrot. Hey, come do this weekend in Toronto and I'll give you $30,000. And you're going to say, nah, I'd rather just stay home. And when money's in front of you, it's very difficult to say no.
It is. Money is the issue, right? But I will tell you this. I did a road gig and I was only support talent with Jim Brewer. And I was the coach of my daughter's soccer team. And we did Schaumburg, Illinois. And Jim is he's a very, very close friend of mine. And he's a great guy to go on the road with because we're pretty simpatico. We're both, happily married. We're not doing all the things that a single guy or a bad husband would do on the road. And so we went on a Sunday to see a movie because we had a Sunday night show. And in the movie, at that time we're in the movie, my kid had a soccer game. And since I was one of the coaches, I had my wife, who was also one of the coaches, on the sideline calling me. And for a 90-minute soccer game, I coached crouched down in the movie theater. And Brewer was howling because he's also a big family guy. And we've talked about it a number of times. It's really difficult. And you're right, money's big, but it's not everything, right?
It's not. And like I said, it'll be hard, but just like I turned down money to go to donuts with Dad, and it was good. When you're making more money, it's easier, I guess, to turn down money. I don't know.
So, it's going to be tough, but I think you'll get to a spot where it sounds like you have a good handle on it. I do have a question for you. So, as a comic, you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But as a teacher, there's got to be some times where you go, well, I can't have my students hear this. Like this topic, I can't be out front with this. It's just stuff you don't talk about on stage because you're worried about how you'll be perceived by kids, parents, or administration.
Nah.
Nothing.
I mean, listen, I as a person, I don't talk politics. Like I have, obviously, everyone has their opinion on politics. I talk about it with my wife, my mom, my siblings. You know what I mean? That's it. Like I don't need, because unfortunately, the way the world is, you say one thing, you piss off 50% of the people, you say the other, you piss off the other 50. So I don't care to piss anybody off. Like it don't, I try to be very neutral when it comes to like things like that. But as far as like, listen, it definitely runs through my head sometimes where I'm talking and I'm like, oh shit, if I say this, like, and a kid hears it, but I will say like my act online that I portray, I never curse online. It's very clean. It's more just like silly. And then on stage, I'm a lot more raunchy and people are always like, whoa, like we weren't expecting that, but like in a good way, because like I'm not cookie cutter. I don't want to get up there and just be like, school, oh man, the kids are hard. Like that's not, I teach in a New York City public school. Like it's not roses. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we got a tough gig in New York. So I just speak the truth. And if anyone has a problem with it, I'm like, well, that's what it is. Change the system. Don't change me.
You think that if you were teaching in Rumson, New Jersey, or Princeton, New Jersey, or whatever, somewhere
A nicer place. Gotcha.
right? So because you're teaching a more, what's the word I want? You're teaching a more exposed group to begin with. They see more than some kid in suburban Iowa is going to see. So do you think that you're a little more free there because the administration is like, yeah, of course you're talking about that.
Yeah, I mean it's so funny. People always say when you talk about this stuff on the road, do they relate? And I said it's so funny. Like they don't relate necessarily. Like I was in Texas and like I was saying things that kids say to us, and they were like, "Well, like why didn't you just punish them?" I'm like, "Oh, we can't punish in New York. Like the kids have all the power, guys. Like so like in Texas, they're like, well, tell them, like." Call their parents. I'm like, no, we're not dealing with that here. Like we're dealing with a whole different animal. So,
Right.
There is definitely discrepancies with the way the country is, but for the most part, I think teaching as a whole, everybody gets it. Like, and the thing is, I always say my act is not just for teachers. So like, yes, do I talk about teaching? Yes. But if you were ever a student, which everybody who's going to come to the show, anybody ever has been a student. If you've ever met a person who's crazy, I talk about crazy stuff. So it's like you can relate to it in one way or another. And they're just funny stories, I think.
I think I've seen the act, and it's clearly not just for teachers. It's for everybody that's had any exposure, and that is everybody.
Yeah,
education.
And everybody knows a teacher, and chances are, like, if you're there with the teacher, so you've heard their crap that they've dealt with. So everyone relates to it, I like to think.
I think you're right. So what was the reaction to your administrators and fellow teachers and even your family when you said, I'm going to start doing stand-up? They think you were funny?
I mean, my whole life, everybody always said, why don't you do stand-up? Why don't you do stand-up? I just never had I wouldn't even say the courage to do it because I just never had the opportunity. Like everyone to go to an open mic. Like I didn't want to I've seen open mics. Like I know, it's 10 comics. Everyone's reading their own material, ignoring you, waiting for their turn to get up to be ignored. And like, I was just like, I don't know how to even go about this, and then finally I did one and I had fun. People laughed and someone in the audience was like, hey, you're pretty funny. You should do more. Gave me his number. We talked. He put me on a stage and then it just kind of snowballed. And then Joe D and I hooked up over COVID and started doing shows with him on Zoom and then doing shows with him in real life. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Are you suggesting that Zoom is not real life?
No, Zoom is not real life.
So you've been doing stand-up how many years?
6 years.
6 years. And so you've really had a quick rise. That's fantastic, which I think is great.
Thank you.
I have a question that Peter wrote for me. You think teachers are overpaid? Is that something you think?
Do I think teachers are underpaid?
Overpaid.
Overpaid? Nah. I mean, the thing is, teachers are underpaid as a whole in the country, 1,000%.
That's what I think.
If you paid a babysitter, yesterday I had a babysitter watch my kids. She watched my kids. It was $25 an hour. If I paid her for 8 hours to watch my kids, it's $200, right? Teachers aren't making $200 a day. So, everything is, if I might as well just put my kids in an Uber and drive them around the block for 8 hours. It'll come out cheaper. than
Right.
paying
So
a tutor.
I don't know why he wrote that question. You know, one of the producers wrote the question for me. I don't like to read questions. I like to have a conversation in any case.
Yeah.
But since he wrote that question, I thought that perhaps he did think they're overpaid.
No, they're underpaid, if anything.
That's what I think too. And I think that it cracks me up because people will say, well, teachers have somewhere else. And I'm one of the guys that says, listen, this is what I think about education. I was on the board of ed for 7.5 years. And I think this about a lot of things. It's not just education. So the education system in America, it gets the job done. And in some regards, it's excellent. In some regards, it's broken. But the problem I see is that it's very difficult to augment what's working, and it's very difficult to fix what's broken. And I always ask the same question. If you said to me tomorrow, here's $180 million, which is the budget in my town, right around $180 million, go design from scratch an education system. I could readily identify the parts that I would eliminate. They don't work. But and I would say, well, let's do X, Y, and Z. But one of the things I would say is, well, teachers should be paid more money, and we should embrace technology to increase the number of students that a better paid teacher can teach, and then use TAs to train new teachers, more like the university model, using, so not just a silly thing, right? So I think teachers are underpaid, but I think that in the current system, it's going to be difficult, given budgets, to move their pay to a number where we're attracting the best talent. And having spoken to you,
sorry.
Yeah, and having spoken to you now for the last 25 minutes, it's clear to me that you are not the best talent. And the thing I'm trying to say is, no, see, so you're a guy that legitimately cares. When you tell a student, I don't care about your grades, at first blush, someone might say that's terrible, but I see clearly what you're doing. So clearly you're a better intentioned individual, right? Because you're trying to turn out someone that knows about Genghis Khan, but more importantly, knows how to be a good human. And to me, you pay a premium for that. So I think teachers are underpaid. Peter, why did you ask that question? Do you think teachers are overpaid? I don't need you over here. Just tell me why. Oh my God. Peter thinks they're overpaid, but Peter's,
No, but and listen, and I see why people say, oh, we only work 180 days a year. We're off for the summer. We're off for the holidays. But nobody wants to do the job. So at the same time, like teachers are leaving in masses right now. We're having a teacher shortage. So like this is what I always tell people, when people always every summer, oh, it must be nice to be off all summer. I always say, this is always my comeback. Oh, did you not know that teachers were off all summer? And they're like, yeah, of course I did. I go, then why didn't you become a teacher? It's the job's available for everybody. Anybody can become a teacher. It's literally, there's a shortage. You just need to have a pulse and you could be a teacher, and still nobody wants to do it. So if it's such an easy job, then, Peter should go be a teacher.
Yeah, exactly, Peter.
An overpaid teacher.
Well, here's the other thing. I think that people don't realize that I'm for year-round teaching, much better pay, year-round teaching, longer school days, longer breaks for the kids. I'm for a lot of
I am too. I think kids should go to school all year. Because like right now, for what I'm paying for camp, my kids should go to school all year. Because this is crazy.
Funny. It's funny because if I designed education, it would instantly be significantly better for everybody involved. Teachers would make more, parents would feel more empowered, children would get better education, because I'm brilliant. And the thing is, we can't get that done. What you said about anyone being able to become a teacher, that's accurate, right? And people aren't going into the field. And I think that part of the reason for that is that teachers are not empowered. The students have more power than the teacher. If a student punches a teacher and a teacher reacts, and were to restrain and potentially hurt the child, the kid's still going to get an education, but the teacher's going to get unemployed.
Yeah.
Because the kid is not going to be denied an education.
No, it's
and
crazy.
When you tell somebody, and this is one of the things I believe, when you allow someone who go into a classroom and become so disruptive that no one can be educated to the degree that we want. When you allow the disruptors or the bad actors to infiltrate and ruin a classroom environment, you've doomed teaching. And I also think that a lot of those kids that don't want to learn about Genghis Khan, because maybe their interest is film or auto mechanics or carpentry. You know, I said this to one of our superintendents. We don't celebrate at graduation the way we should the kid that's going to become an auto mechanic.
Yeah.
Right? We only celebrate the kid that got into Harvard. And, you know, my kids got into great schools. I'm very proud of them. And they were celebrated. They were brought in front of the Board of Education a million times for high SAT scores, academic and athletic achievement. And I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is, well, I wasn't the kid that scored well at a carpentry aptitude test, similarly celebrated.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because those jobs are just as important, if not more important, because nobody knows how to do them anymore.
I remember my father telling me 100 years ago, all doctors and lawyers look down on plumbers with disdain until their toilet's clogged.
Yeah.
And then that guy's a king. Because, right now, my father was a commercial plumber, big, gigantic building, steam fitter, you know, high rises. But he understood the plight of the guy walking in. The roto-rooter guy isn't important until he's important. And then he's the most important guy in that house because the stuff doesn't go down that pipe. So, you know, it's interesting to me that we should be celebrating other things. I think that sometimes disruptive children are maybe just not interested. Have you read the book Harold by Stephen Wright?
Mm-mm.
There's a book called Harold that Stephen Wright wrote it. And you know, to be fair, it's not my favorite book. I'm enjoying it. It's good. But as a teacher, you might find it interesting because it's one day in a third grade child's life. It's
interesting.
Yeah,
Harold?
it's interesting. Harold. And I want to go on record as saying it's worth reading, but I can see where some people might disconnect from it. It's an interesting style, but he's got a couple comments in there that are really very great Stephen Wright observations. At one point, he says, well, you know, it's presumptuous. The teacher says, Harold, you're not paying attention. And his point is, no, you mean I'm not paying attention to what you're saying. I'm paying attention to something else. And it's an interesting way to look at that, right?
Yeah.
Because, so I love history. I would love being in your class. Not everybody does. So let's talk quickly. I don't mean to dive off. Were other teachers your influence? Did you have other teachers an influence as a comic or no?
I mean, like, you know, I'm spoiled by, you know, being with Joe D because like he's the best in the business. So like I definitely look up to him. There's a guy, Jay Yoder, who's actually going to be with me at the show next week. He's opening up for me. He's been opening up for me all over the East Coast. Very funny comics. Very similar. Like I like being on the road with him, family guy, you know, dad, 2 kids, you know, plays baseball with his kid, you know, like he does all the stuff. So we're kind of always like on the same, like, shit, how do I get back in time to, you know, so it's, you know how it is when you're with these people, that's who you look up to because you're together and you see how they go about their business and it's good, you know?
Yeah, it is really good. And I'm not going to keep you on. I'm going to talk a little bit about the date. So your next Wednesday, what's the date?
Yeah, August 16th.
August 16th. We want to be sold out, right? So we want to, we're doing the podcast. Are we close? Are we going to add a show? You know, I can add a show, but I can't pay you for the second show. Is that right?
I don't know about it. Is it sold out?
It's getting close, right? Yeah, it's getting really close. So I'll keep you posted on the numbers. I'm super excited for you. I think it's going to be a very big year for you. Are you with an agent or manager yet?
I am not. So if you know anybody, let me know.
I do. Listen, we'll talk off air.
Yeah. Thanks.
And I will tell you who. But Joe would also know, right? Joe would know.
We'll talk off air.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. August 16th at the Stress Factory in Brunswick, New Jersey. Gaspare Randazzo.
Yes. So I'll see you guys there.
I'm going to see you then. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.